In this video, we're going to talk about rewriting quadratic expressions in factored form. First, we're going to use a diagram to show that each pair of expressions is equivalent. Our first pair is x times x plus 3 and x squared plus 3x. So we did this earlier, but if you remember, we're labeling one side of the rectangle with one of the factors. So I'm going to label this side with x and the other side with the other factor. So I'm going to label the other side with x plus 3 and divide that into two boxes, one for the x and one for the 3. Now I multiply the two sides of the box together to get the area of the box. So x times x would be x squared, x times 3 would be 3x. And so adding these two areas together gives me the total of x times x plus 3. So x times x plus 3 equals x squared plus 3x. Now the second pair that we have is x plus 4 times x minus 10. This one is a little bit different because now I'm going to have two parts on both sides of my rectangle. So I'm going to label x minus 10 and x plus 4. And remember, if there's a minus sign, I need to include that. So this x minus 10, I put a minus sign on the 10. Now I multiply the two sides to get the area of each. We're going to have x squared minus 10x plus 4x, and 4 times negative 10 is minus 40. So adding these four pieces together gives me the total of x plus 4 times x minus 10, which is x squared minus 10x plus 4x minus 40. And then we combine the like terms to get x squared minus 6x minus 40. And in my third example here, we have x minus 1 times x minus 7. So again, I'm going to label my box with x minus 1 and x minus 7 along the sides, putting the negative signs along with the numbers, the negative 1 and the negative 7. And then I multiply to get x squared minus 7x minus 1x, and negative 1 times negative 7 is positive 7. So this is telling me that x minus 1 times x minus 7 equals x squared minus 7x minus 1x plus 7. And combining the like terms gives me x squared minus 8x plus 7. So this is review. But the question we're asked is, how is each expression in factored form related to the equivalent expression in standard form? So looking at my standard form expressions here that I get after multiplying it out, we have plus 7 that I get from multiplying the negative 1 and negative 7. And we have negative 40 that comes from multiplying negative 10 and positive 4. So if we are multiplying two sets of parentheses, we get a constant term or a number term from multiplying the two numbers together. Or in other words, if we have the constant term, we know that the two numbers here must multiply to equal that. So negative 40, I know that these two numbers must multiply to negative 40. And positive 7, I know that these two numbers must multiply to positive 7. So we know that the two numbers in the factored form multiply to the constant or the number that's by itself. Now let's look at what the middle term tells us. So we have minus 6x here, and we got that from adding these two terms together. And we have negative 8x, which we got from adding these two terms together. And these two terms come from these two numbers multiplied by x. So we know that the middle term, the two numbers in parentheses, will add to give us that number. Negative 10 plus 4 gives us negative 6, and negative 1 plus negative 7 gives us negative 8. So add to the middle term. Which is sometimes called the linear term because it is the number in front of x. Now, if we go back up to our first example here, we see that this one is a little bit different because we don't have 4 boxes, we only have 2. So to think about how we would get from our standard form to our factored form, we are factoring out a common term or a common, in this case it's a variable. So we're factoring out the common variable of x to get it from standard form to factored form. Now the reason that doesn't work with these is because I can't take the x out because this 7 does not have an x. If it was just x squared minus 8x, then I could just take an x out of that. But because the 7 doesn't have an x, I can't factor an x out of all 3 parts. So for question 3, it says to write x squared minus 5x plus 6 in factored form. So I know that my factored form is going to have 2 sets of parentheses that are going to look like this. And what we are looking for is 2 numbers that multiply to 6 and add to negative 5. I'm going to show this with the box like we did above because I think that makes it a little bit more clear. So what I have here is I know that I'm going to have x times x here, and I know that what's in this lower right corner is going to be 6. So the question is, what would I put up here and what would I put over here so that when I multiply, I get x squared and I get 6, and then I get minus 5x when I add these two pieces together. Well, I know that negative 2 and negative 3 are going to add to negative 5, and I know that they're going to multiply to positive 6 because negative times negative is positive. So this would give me minus 2x, and this would give me minus 3x. And so when I add these together, I get that minus 5x. So in the parentheses, I'm going to have negative 2 and negative 3. So this would be my factored form.